Hey guys, this is the vegetable lecture. There's going to be two parts to this. I think I'm only going to have enough time to do the first 12 slides in this video, and we'll do the other 12 slides in the next video. So there should be two parts to the vegetable, and my guess is the same thing for starch. So let's get going. So when we're talking about vegetables, we want to talk about the cooking of vegetables and the characteristics of vegetables, just like we've always done. We're going to talk about the marketing or the market forms of vegetables, so on and so forth. So, of course, we are definitely concerned about the cooking of vegetables and how cooking affects them. So we know that cooking affects the texture, right? So think about the difference between a cooked carrot and a raw carrot. The cooked carrot is much softer, and so that texture is changed, okay? The flavor of something or of a vegetable changes once we cook it. The color, we know that, and we talked about this earlier on in the semester and how when we cook especially green vegetables, we need to be very careful in how we cook them so that we don't destroy that nice bright green color that we want to see on a plate. Also the nutrients. We don't want to overcook so that we don't lose nutrients. So the texture of the vegetable, when we're talking about how it's cooked, remember fiber is one of those things in plants and vegetables that is a component of food and helps it to give its shape and its firmness, all right? Texture can be changed through cooking. The fiber that you're going to find in vegetables is going to be either cellulose or pectins, or a combination of the two. They can be made firmer with either acid or sugar. We talked about that. So think about a poached pear or a poached apple, where we would add, maybe red or white wine and sugar to a syrup that we cook it down with. That way, it's cooked all the way through, but it still holds its shape, okay? It can be softened with the addition of heat, where if we were to make applesauce, if you were to just dice up apples with, and put it in a pot and cook it down, it would turn into applesauce. So with heat, it's softened. And the same thing with alkali. We talked about that with using baking soda to brighten the color of vegetables, but you see nutrient loss as well as mushiness in the food. Also, the amount of starch that's in a vegetable affects the texture. We know, obviously, when we get into starches and we start talking about like potatoes and grains and such, that's going to have a little bit different. But there are vegetables that have different amounts of starch. And especially some fruits have what we call a starch reserve, where that will actually allow a fruit or vegetable to continue to ripen once picked from the vine, okay? Ripening is, by definition, just the conversion of starch to sugar. So in other words, let's say an apple. When an apple is ripening, if you were to pick it too early, it wouldn't be as sweet. If you were to continue to allow it to ripen or convert those starches to sugar, to simple sugars, that's what the whole idea of ripening is. It's the conversion from starch, which is not sweet, to simple sugars, okay? When we're cooking vegetables, we're also concerned about flavor loss, obviously. We want to make sure that we are providing the best flavored food when we're done with it, right? So to control loss of flavor, we want to only cook it for a short period of time. We don't want to be cooking it for long periods of time, because over long periods of time of cooking, you're going to lose flavor. Also, having boiling salted water that we use to blanch in will control flavor loss. It will actually help with flavor, and making sure that we have boiling water ensures that we're only going to cook it for a short period of time. If the water's not boiling, that means we're going to have a longer cooking time. So that's why we're looking at boiling salted water. Not to use too much water. I don't know if you guys remember this, but a long time ago we talked about when we cook something in too much water, we're going to see nutrient loss as well as flavor loss and color loss. For instance, if you let's say we cook broccoli in a big old pot of water, and what you're going to see is the loss of flavor and color and nutrients because it kind of what we call leaches out into the water. Remember we talked about leeches and leaching and how I said it was like your cousin who sleeps on your couch for a little too long. That's what leaching is. Also, steaming vegetables. Steaming vegetables uses high heat for a very short period of time. And so what you're going to end up with is a vegetable that is not overcooked. It's cooked for a short period of time, and it's keeping all of its natural flavors. So that's how we control flavor loss in vegetables. Now, color loss. We went through all those colored vegetables back in the beginning of the semester when we were talking about basic cooking methods. That was probably either week 4 or week 5. So we just want to touch on that again and remember that white vegetables, their color pigment are called flavones. And so when we're talking about how they're affected by acids and alkalines, we know that adding an acidic component keeps them white. Okay, so think of potatoes or apples. These are white fruits and vegetables where if we were to add an acidulated liquid, okay, or just put them in water with just a touch of acid. It could be lemon juice, it could be white wine, it could be anything. For potatoes, it's just water, so the oxygen doesn't get to them. Bananas, all of these things, they're kept white, and they're so they don't oxidize by using a little bit of acid. And if we use an alkaline, they tend to turn yellow. Okay. Also, if we have white vegetables and they're held in a steam table for too long, they'll turn dull and even gray on you. Think like turnips, goodness gracious, a lot of root vegetables that are white tend to be like this, okay? Red vegetables, remember their coloring pigment is anthocyanins. Acids improve their color, right? Red vegetables are, and orange too, are very stable. They're not going to lose a lot of the color like we would see in green fruits and vegetables. But if we add alkali, they're actually going to turn bluish, okay? So let's say you had red cabbage and for some reason, it came into contact with something like baking soda water, okay? That would turn it more of a bluish color. Whereas if you were pickling shallots and you used a vinegar with the red color or even red onions, they would turn a very bright red. So they improve color, acids improve color, alkalis turn it bluish. Red vegetables also dissolve easily in water, so we tend to use as little water as possible when we're cooking red vegetables. Think beets, red bell peppers. Most of those can be just roasted without using any water whatsoever, or they use their own, cooking liquid or their own juices to cook them in. So the addition of extra water really isn't necessary. But if, whatever liquid you do use to cook them in, it's a good idea to use that liquid as part of the sauce, okay? And finally, green vegetables. These their color pigment is chlorophyll. We talked a lot about and we worked a lot with green vegetables this semester so far. We know that acids will turn them green. They turn the bright green into a dull and not so attractive khaki color. So we want to avoid exposing green vegetables to acid for longer periods of time. Also, acids will begin to break them down pretty quickly. So it says to avoid it, but the thing is about green vegetables is a lot of them go very, very well with acidic sauces. So think, and we've talked about this, asparagus with lemon butter, or broccoli with a little bit of lemon squeezed over the top. So acids work really well with green vegetables for the most part, but you just have to be careful to retain in retaining the color when they're exposing them to acids. And we talked about baking soda retaining the green color, but you lose nutrients and vitamins, and also they also get mushy. But I don't know that a lot of people really use baking soda in cooking vegetables anymore. If you do run into somebody who still does that, it's an old school thing, and it may have just been something that they were taught by somebody else, and they never, understood why they did it. But it is something that we know now that we don't want to do, because it really does. Although it retains that color for longer periods of time, we're losing nutrients, vitamins, and also texture. The texture changes, so let's avoid that. When we're looking at green vegetables, the idea is that when we are done, that green vegetables should be tender, but still have some crispness to them. We don't want them to be mushy when they're done. So tender enough to eat, yes, but we still want a little bit of bite to it, okay? And then orange, yellow vegetables, that color pigment is called carotenoids. Think of a carrot, if that helps you, carotenoids. They tend to be very stable, and there's very little effect from either acids or alkali. But I think the one thing that holds true with orange and yellow, like think of carrots being cooked and then held in water, they can get very mushy if there's too much water going on and they're held in that for too long. So the colors are great, will stay, they're very stable, but I think what we really need to pay more attention to is that texture loss, okay? So overcooking can dull that color, but overall they're very stable. When we're talking about nutrient loss, because this is, a very important thing. We do not want to lose nutrients. It's the whole reason that we're providing food for people, right? It's not just for flavor and how it looks, but we should be providing nutrients. So the factors responsible for nutrient loss: too high of a temperature, we can lose nutrients. Too long of cooking, we lose nutrients. Leaching is what I was telling you about, using too much water. And the nutrients leach out into that water, and then when we drain it, it's lost. The use of alkalis, you'll see nutrient loss. And oxygen. Now when I mean that, there's certain fruits and vegetables that will, oxidize in the presence of oxygen. Those are the ones that turn brown when exposed to oxygen or the air. And so we know that oxidation also aids in nutrient loss, which is what we don't want. So we want to protect our fruits and vegetables from oxidizing, okay? So basic rules: don't overcook your vegetables. Cook them as close to service as possible. Remember, hopefully you guys have listened to me when I've said this. If we have, a presentation time of 6 o'clock, or you have a service time at work of 6 o'clock, I don't want you cooking your vegetables at 4:30, right? Because we want them to be fresh. We want them to be vibrant. We don't want to hold them for too long. And then we don't want to mix old batches of vegetables with new, because that will just break down the newer vegetables faster. So we need to be careful of that. Okay. When we're handling our veggies, we want to wash them all, obviously. Some vegetables will need to be soaked, like lettuces and such, to remove insects and to restore crispness. When we peel them, we want to do it as thinly as possible. There's so many nutrients that are held either in the skin or just below the skin that if we peel too much away, we're really taking nutrients away from that vegetable. And then veggies can oxidize, so hold underwater or use an acid in doing that. All right. So this is where we'll pick up in the next video. I want to talk about how vegetables are packaged. We're going to see a lot of this in our field trip on Thursday, so that's exciting. But the next video, we're going to talk about market forms of vegetables and how that's important. All right, so go ahead and look for that video.